Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Moore's October Rants. Today's episode is titled Mean What You Say. Let's dive into something that's been sitting on my mind for a while now. This whole thing about how people say one thing and do something entirely different. It's like a societal epidemic, and honestly, it's exhausting to watch. You ever notice how people love to talk about their beliefs, their opinions, and how they feel about certain things? They'll go on and on about what they stand for, what they think is right, or even how they see the world. But when you really step back and look at their actions, it's like, where's the connection? It's like their beliefs are just this script they've rehearsed, but they never actually put on the performance. Their lives don't align with the narrative they keep spinning. What really gets me is how often people say things just to sound good in the moment. You know what I mean, right? Like when someone's in a group and they say something that makes everyone nod in agreement, but deep down, they don't actually believe it or live by it. I've seen it happen countless times, and it's like the world has turned into one giant talent show where everyone is performing for approval instead of just being real. This really hit me the other day while I was listening to a song. Don't you love it when a lyric just punches you in the gut? One line stood out. People don't mean what they say. Everybody seems fake. That one hit different because honestly, isn't that the world we're living in? It feels like we're surrounded by people who are more focused on looking virtuous, wise, or cool than on actually living those qualities. It's all surface level. And look, I get it. Nobody's perfect. Everyone screws up or falls short sometimes. But what I'm talking about is bigger than the occasional mess up. It's about people who habitually say one thing and do another, as if they don't even notice the disconnect. Like, how can you talk about being compassionate, yet turn around and treat someone like dirt the second they inconvenience you? Or preach about honesty, but lie as soon as it benefits you? Here's the kicker: when you call someone out on it, you're suddenly the bad guy. They'll say, oh, you're just being judgmental, or hit you with, you don't know my life. And I get that. Sure, everyone's got their struggles. But when you're consistently contradicting yourself, maybe it's time for some self reflection instead of pointing fingers at the person who noticed. Let me break it down with an example. Say someone tells you they're a devout Catholic, right? They talk all day about how much they love their faith, how it defines their life, and how they follow its teachings. But then you see them out partying, getting wasted, and hooking up with strangers. Now, I'm not here to judge how people live their lives. It's not about that. It's about the hypocrisy. If you're going to wave the flag of your faith, shouldn't you at least try to follow the core principles it stands for? It's not about being perfect. It's about effort, about alignment between what you say you value and how you live. But too often, people pick and choose the parts that suit them, ignoring the rest. This kind of thing doesn't just stop with religion, it's everywhere. People say they're passionate about a cause, like saving the environment or helping the less fortunate, but then you find out they don't recycle, or they've never donated a dime or an hour of their time to support the very cause they claim to care about. It's wild, isn't it? The soapbox is crowded with people shouting about what's wrong in the world, but how many of them are actually doing something to fix it? Talking about change is easy. Acting on it, that's where the work is. I think a lot of this comes down to self awareness or the lack of it. People want to believe they're good, kind, or righteous, and they probably are in some ways. But instead of doing the hard work of examining themselves and making changes, they take the shortcut. They say the right things, act the right way in public, and hope that's enough. The problem is, it's not. Actions speak louder than words, and if your actions don't match your words, people notice. Let me tell you a story that sticks with me. Growing up, my dad used to talk about how he wanted to move us to a better place, get a better job, give us a fresh start. He'd talk about it all the time, and as a kid, I believed him. I thought, yeah, one day it's going to happen, but it never did. He meant well, no doubt about that, but he never took the steps to follow through. And that taught me something. Words are cheap if they're not backed by action. Even if you mean them, they don't mean much if they just stay words. And here's another thing. How many people out there don't even know themselves well enough to mean what they say? I'm not talking about liars or manipulators, though they exist too. I'm talking about people who think they're being genuine, but haven't really taken the time to figure out what they believe in or who they are. They'll say something in one moment because it feels right, but a week later, they're saying the exact opposite because they never really meant the first thing to begin with. It's not malicious, but it's still fake. So, what do we do about this? Honestly, I think it starts with holding ourselves accountable before we worry about anyone else. It's easy to point out hypocrisy in others, but are we living up to our own values? Are we walking the talk, or are we just saying the words that make us look good? I'm not saying we have to be perfect, nobody is. But there's something to be said for trying, for reflecting on who you are and what you stand for, and then doing your best to live that out. At the end of the day, actions speak louder than words. And while words might get you attention or admiration in the moment, your actions that define who you really are. So, the next time you find yourself about to make a big statement about your beliefs, stop and think, do I actually live this? And if not, how can I start? Anyways, that's all I've got for today. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Signing out. Have a good one, guys. Goodbye.